I will not punish your daughters when they turn to prostitution, nor your daughters-in-law when they commit adultery, because the men themselves consort with harlots and sacrifice with shrine prostitutes. A people without understanding will come to ruin. Hosea 4:14. Hello, welcome to Geekdom of God. I'm your host, Santir, and today I'm going to talk about who is responsible for managing male sexual desires. I think this is an important topic to talk about because it is one that society often seems to get backwards. Specifically, as we will see today, the Bible makes it clear that men are responsible for their own sexuality, for their own sexual urges. Society often likes to give that responsibility to women instead. In Hosea 4:14, which I read off the top, we see that God said that he would not punish the Israelite women for their promiscuity because the men were culturally promiscuous, which is what created the demand for the women's promiscuity in the first place. Clearly, God expected the men to control their sexual desires. He didn't blame the women for complying with the men's demands, he blamed the men for making those demands. This expectation is echoed in Proverbs, as Solomon repeatedly instructs his sons to control their sexual urges and to not allow adulterous women to tempt them into committing adultery. Indeed, such warnings appear throughout the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, warnings such as Proverbs 5:1-6. My son, pay attention to my wisdom, turn your ear to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion, and your lips may preserve knowledge. For the lips of the adulterous woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil, but in the end she is bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lead straight to the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths wander aimlessly, but she does not know it. An adulterous woman is one who seeks out men to seduce. Solomon instructs his sons to avoid such women, to not give in to their temptings. Such instruction makes it clear that Solomon the Wise believed his sons able to obey his instruction, though he clearly thought they needed to hear it a lot. I further note that he is emphasizing to the men their need to be masters of their own sexuality and to engage with it wisely. As king, Solomon could have made proclamations restricting women's behavior or dress, but instead, he is instructing his sons to have control over their sexual urges. So, if men can resist the temptation to cede their sexual urges to a seductress, how much more should they be able to resist sexual temptations stemming from a woman who is not attempting to seduce them? Therefore, men who give in to a seductress have little excuse, and those who sexually victimize women who aren't trying to seduce them have even less of an excuse. And the vast majority of women are not trying to seduce men, regardless of what they are wearing. Indeed, a woman can be naked, and that is still no excuse to sexually mistreat her. This is made abundantly clear through the story of King David and Bathsheba. Many of us have heard of King David's adultery with Bathsheba, but so that it is fresh in our minds, I'm going to summarize it. You can find the entire account in 2 Samuel 11 and 12. I do think it is useful to start the summary by quoting the instigating incident found in 2 Samuel 11, 2-5. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." Bathsheba was presumably naked when she was bathing, and David saw her and was smitten by her beauty. He commanded her to come to him so he could have sex with her, and she obeyed. He was the king, after all. This act resulted in her becoming pregnant. She told David, who then summoned Bathsheba's husband Uriah to return from the front lines of the war with the Ammonites to subtly try and get him to have sex with her so that it would be thought that the child was Uriah's. In this way, David hoped to cover up what he had done. Uriah, however, refused, out of respect for the rest of the troops who were away from home. So, David sent him back to the front lines with a note for David's military commander Joab, as recorded in 2 Samuel 11, 14-15. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it he wrote, "Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him, so he will be struck down and die." Joab did as David instructed, and Uriah died. We can see the response to his death in 2 Samuel 11, 26-27. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. Here, we see that God is blaming David for what happened, not Bathsheba. After all, it was he who gave into lust, not her. Therefore, the fault is David's because he failed to control himself and abused his power. In conclusion, men ought to be in control of their own sexuality and not expect women to control it for them. This is important because women can't actually control men's sexuality. It doesn't work because women can't choose men's actions. Plus, it distorts the relationship between the sexes. The idea that women can somehow control men's sexuality is especially prevalent in modesty-driven cultures, and the church is often a modesty-driven culture. Therefore, we must make sure we don't get caught up in this non-biblical idea. I'm not saying we shouldn't teach women to try to protect themselves in this fallen world. What I am saying is that, like Solomon, we should teach men to control their sexuality. And, like Solomon, we should do so with persistence. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Geekdom of God podcast. To support this program, go to patreon.com/Ciantier. For more, you can visit geekdomofgod.com. Finally, you can email Ciantier at ciantier@geekdomofgod.com.